Hi, everybody. It's Brian Mahoney, the president of Trend Research and the OTT executive community. We're continuing in our conversation with leaders of the industry, streaming, media, and OTT. Today, we're joined by Jeremy Stern. Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. It's a real honor to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. And, there's a lot to talk about. We want to talk about your career. We want to talk about the industry. And you had quite a tenure at YouTube TV. So why don't we just start with quick introductions about your background?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Brian. Last week marked the beginning of my 43rd year in this industry. It's been quite a journey, and I feel so blessed to have been on it and seen what I have. It begins when I got out of college and was a door-to-door cable salesman in suburban Detroit.
Oh, that's great.
It was a fabulous experience. It was really the one job that brought me right to literally to the consumer's doorstep. And I got a chance to see what cable consumers really wanted back then. And it's really not much different today for television viewers. Did
you actually have to knock on doors? Did they give you a list, or did you actually go and knock on the door?
I had 100 houses to hit every week, and I did pretty well. I sold 65% of the houses I contacted, and got them to buy like 2.6 pay units per household. I remember those numbers because the sales manager would never let me forget them, because I blew his incentive off the map those weeks.
That's great. Good for you.
It was a fun experience, and I just fell in love with cable. Mm-hmm. I was heading into the broadcast business out of college with a broadcast production degree, and wanted to start in local TV. And all of the local TV stations in Detroit, when I graduated, had a hiring freeze. So it was sort of like plastics was to Dustin Hoffman in The Graduate. Someone whispered cable into my ears, and I got into cable. And after the sales job, door to door, I went into market development, franchising, and this was the early 80s. And of course, cable was just entering the major urban markets at the time. So it was a period of explosive growth, and I had a chance to be part of that. It was just a ton of fun. I loved that job because I was evangelizing cable, which was an extraordinary technology at the time. I grew up in Detroit with 7 off-air TV channels, so that went off the air at midnight.
That's awesome.
And so people, and I found out when I was walking the streets in suburban Detroit, they just wanted something different and at a fair value. And I was working for a company called Continental Cablevision at the time. And it was an amazing company to come out of college and start working for them, because so many of the values I learned in business, foundational things about integrity and taking care of your employees and your customers, I learned from that company. And it was just a great place to start.
So Jeremy, just to interrupt you there for a second. So I think it's really interesting, because in the industry, we can get so caught up into strategy and engagement and all these big terms and everything, and forget about the viewer. And here you are starting your career, literally talking to the subscriber, having a relationship, and kind of selling them on this package.
It was fun. It really was. It was a heady time. And for consumers, going from 7 to, we were selling a 54 channel system at the time, and there was choice, and that's what they really, really wanted. And even something as simple as a remote control was very new at that time. So I got to see that and start, believe in the technology and what it could do for the communities we were working in. And so I helped build the market for Continental Cablevision in Michigan. And, somewhere along the way, I got the bug to go to law school. Never was on my roadmap, but my mentor and boss at the time, Mike Ritter, was a trained lawyer, and he was running the company in Michigan. And I was so impressed with his business skills. I thought, this is a heavily regulated industry, probably be a good thing to have a law degree, and I'll use it in business. Yeah. So 86 was a big year for me, because I met Yaj Janicek from the NCTA, and she invited me to come to Washington, D.C. to start up the NCTA's organized anti-piracy effort. And so I went to NCTA, moved to Washington, and went to law school at Georgetown. And that move opened my eyes to how big the cable industry was. And I started meeting a ton of people and seeing how the industry really worked, both inside the Beltway and outside. And it was an extraordinary opportunity.
So anti-piracy back then, was that taking the coat hanger and sticking it in the cable box and stealing channels? Or
it was a little more sophisticated than that.
Okay.
They'd get these black boxes that they'd sell for $300, and they'd descramble without authority the not that sophisticated encryption or encoding at the time.
At the time, yeah.
And but it was pretty easy to find them. And one of the really fun things I did with my law degree and my cable experience was we found this pirate. The FBI was investigating this pirate in New Jersey, and he was selling hundreds of thousands of these boxes all over the country.
Wow.
And they caught him red-handed, dead to rights, and he pled guilty. And so I went to his sentencing hearing and created this legal case for restitution for the cable industry under the Federal Victim and Witness Protection Act. And the partner I was working for at the time, so that's a long shot, but we convinced the judge to order $1.3 million in restitution for the cable industry. And it was a huge precedent. And it was a long fight, but I think technology ultimately beat the pirates as we evolved to a more secure platform. And but it was a great experience again, and I was blessed to meet so many great people.
Interesting how the piracy battle is ongoing today. It's gotten much more sophisticated, obviously, but still a huge multi-billion-dollar problem for the industry, huh?
It is, and it's like whack-a-mole, but you can't put the mallet down if you're an industry content executive. You really have to pursue it and have a strategy around it. That's what we found long ago, and it hasn't really changed that much in that sense. But so I got to see the huge expansion of the cable industry in the early 80s, the deregulation of the cable industry, and the subsequent consolidation that happened after that. And then moving into the 90s, the re-regulation of the cable industry. And boy, was that decision to go to law school a good one back then, because they really needed lawyers after the 92 Cable Act. And
good point. Yeah.
Continental Cablevision actually hired me back to be their general counsel in Northern California. So I left Washington and fought the good fight, trying to make sure that the regulatory hand didn't reach too far and impact the company and impact the way we delivered service customers. It was really interesting to see how so many of the unintended consequences from that legislation, the 92 Cable Consumer Protection Act, one of which was the phone companies were very big, the bell companies were very big in lobbying for that legislation. Obviously, they didn't want to see another competitive wire coming into the home, but significantly, they didn't want to see the cable industry investing more money in fiber optics into the communities, because that was going to be, something more than television. Gave the cable operators technology to do more than deliver television. And so that effectively, until the 96 Act, slowed the industry down for 4 years in its deployment of fiber. And much of the investment money at the time went overseas instead of into building fiber networks here. But with the 96 Act, markets were opened up again. Cable started building hybrid fiber coax networks. And, by then we were, well over 200 channels but also had the capacity to offer high-speed data. So in the 90s, I was able to help Continental launch their high-speed data platform in Los Angeles and their competitive digital telephone service in the late 90s. And those were heady times too. I mean, it's just never a dull moment and in this industry. And, it was fun to see how the consumers reacted to both those products. Brian, it was like there were truck chasers when I was selling cable door to door,
Mhm.
and there were 15 years earlier, and there were truck chasers trying to find where Continental was offering high-speed data because they wanted to move into an apartment there. And it was a huge product, and that was a megabit down and 0.25 megabits
Crazy?
upstream for $40 a month.
Yeah.
And we couldn't, the demand was extraordinary. And the same with the competitive phone offering.
Mhm.
Pac Bell here and General Telephone were just the definition of lethargic monopolists, and people couldn't wait to get competitive telephone service from us. Cheaper. We gave them a second line for free. And of course, that was when dial-up. Most people had dial-up and had to switch their phone and their computer modem. And a second line for free was a huge competitive advantage. And we exploded into the market in both those services. And
It's amazing how quickly convergence started happening, though. When I came out of the cable and telecom and wireless space, and then triple play, and then it kind of evolved to, this whole streaming,
Yes.
where we are today. And, we're seeing a reaggregation, and actually things are looking a lot more like cable these days. We'll get to that, but
Yeah.
so your career sort of paralleled all these major inflection points in terms of the different major trends in the industry over the last 20, 30 years.
It was so interesting. And at one point when I was practicing law, and I had a law firm here in Los Angeles that I started up. I was a partner of a major Washington communications law firm, and I opened their LA office, and we just had a blast helping competitive phone companies with their enter the market, helping internet companies, helping startup companies, and cable companies also with their regulatory issues. But it was really interesting working for tech companies in the early 2000s. And I got to know the CEO of this phenomenal company called Automo Magic, Vance Ikazoya. I was his outside counsel and helping to advise him in the evolving digital copyright space. And after about 6 years, he said, I'd rather, I liked your counsel, your legal counsel, but I want you to sell for me. I want you to be our global head of business development. Here I am back out in the selling. I thought I was a lawyer. I'm
like, I heard you're good at knocking on doors. Let's see.
I guess that was my true calling.
Yeah.
But so I hung up the billable hours for stock options and never looked back. I've been doing business development ever since, for startups in that period of time. And then 2011, the small tech startup up in Silicon Valley gave me a call by the name of Google.
Yeah,
and
small company.
They needed someone with startup and cable experience to help them build Google Fiber. And and I look at back Brian, at all the things that I've had a chance to experience and be part of, and this was another big one. I mean, I had a chance to launch the megabit in the late 90s, and here I have a chance to help launch the gigabit, and it was pretty historic, and it was a great opportunity. And
I remember it was exciting. 2004, beginning of 2014, and I think I was in your booth at NAB, right, probably that year or the year after, and there was just so much excitement happening in a lot of the core enabling technologies.
Yes.
There was a lot of challenges. I remember, video going to IP. There was real conversations about whether that was going to break the internet. I don't know if you remember those. Like, can we handle all this traffic, right?
That was the brilliance of the strategy behind the gigabit.
Yeah.
Because those same mom and pop innovative cable companies that I had represented for so many years had started to slow down, and there wasn't much evolution since we launched the megabit. At the time, I think I was getting 10 megabits downstream and 1 megabit upstream for my cable provider, and it was still $40 a month. There was really no price advantage. And when fiber went to market, Google Fiber went to market with a gigabit, it raised the bar for the entire industry.
Yep.
And I think we're, Google Fiber is still starting to grow beyond some of its core footprint now, which is really cool. But I think the big impact that Google had there was put us in a position for all of the streaming media and for IPTV to work on such a broad platform now that everybody's upgraded their fiber networks. So that was a really cool experience. And, to get it into the market, they couldn't just sell the gigabit, so they needed to bundle it with something. And so they decided to do telephone or television, which was going to be much more competitive than just offering telephone service. And so it was an early IPTV play. And the technology was very new. And one of the things I got to do was go out and talk to the major programming companies, Disney and ESPN and the like, and evangelize this new technology. And
so, Jeremy, sorry, take me
really
to
fun.
how did you get to the point where you were launching YouTube TV and going from infrastructure back to, the service and sort of more the customer facing side of things?
It's interesting, Brian. It's a really good question. For most of my career, I was a plumber. I worked on the pipes.
Yep.
It was a cable pipe or a fiber pipe, an ISP. But at all times, you could see that pipe needed to be filled with the analogy water, but great content. And so that's what Google Fiber needed to do, is build a competitive telephone offering. And so I built the licensing strategy and the licensing team for Google Fiber, and we launched with all of the major programmers. And it was a great experience, and we ran that very successfully. And turns out YouTube had a Skunk Works going on at the same time to try and figure out how to get into over-the-top television. And we were, both parts of the company were dealing with the same partners, and we had all this experience negotiating deals with the major media companies. And so they merged the two departments. And so Google Fiber and YouTube TV's content licensing teams became one. And I started licensing on both sides of the house.
Oh, very cool. I didn't realize that. So there was already a Skunk Works project that you sort of tripped over, right? And it fit into the growth strategy for YouTube TV. Yeah.
So YouTube TV launched in, so I started working for YouTube TV in 2017.
Yep.
Early 2017. And well, actually late 2016, we launched in April 2017. And at some point in time, Fiber decided to exit the TV business because the margins were terrible.
Yeah.
But the gigabit was flourishing. And so I became full-time on content for YouTube TV, and I had now a chance to ride this wave of over-the-top virtual channel providers. And it just, again, was an extraordinary part of the journey I'd been on to this point. People, again, wanted a quality service. They wanted innovative user experiences at a good price. And I'm a huge fan of my old company's product. YouTube TV is an extraordinary customer experience. And
Jeremy, did you think of yourselves as a virtual MVPD from the beginning, or did that kind of evolve? Was that the strategy?
Yes, we wanted to be a virtual in the sense that we didn't own the facilities in the same way the traditional cable operator did. So we had to ride on top, but we wanted a good bundle. It wasn't going to be a fat bundle, but we wanted a skinny bundle of the best content that there was to offer at a good price, along with an extraordinary experience. And some of the things they came up with, their unlimited DVR product and the user interface, and so much innovation in that product that it took off. And now, 6 years later, YouTube TV is the 5th largest provider of packaged programming. in the country.
It's amazing. And I do focus groups, and especially the younger people. If you force them to pick certain bundles of OTT services, YouTube is always one of the top choices.
Yeah, it's doing really well because it's got an intuitive user interface. They're constantly innovating. And that was one of the cool things, it was one of the things that's constant in Google, throughout Google and YouTube, is the constant innovation, iterative or huge. The innovations are always going on. With fiber, we had this set-top box that was something more than a doorstop or a boat anchor. Overnight you could update your service package with software downloads. And at the time, most cable boxes weren't capable of that kind of sophistication. So we could make changes in the product overnight. And same with the software-based system behind YouTube TV. And so the innovations keep coming out, like Multiview, just released before March Madness. And, it's a sort of a side-by-side screen. You can watch two games at the same time. And that's going to evolve even more with more software updates to more screens.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that is cutting edge technology, multiple views, co-watching, all these different, immersive experiences are going to be driving the future of the industry for sure. Yeah.
And so I had a chance to be part of that. And I'm just so grateful to have seen that. And, I think, as I start to figure out what I'm going to do in this new chapter of my life, I see great opportunity for the companies I've worked with and worked for and friends in the industry. And I've decided to launch Stern Digital Strategies as a consulting group to help people succeed. I love working with people, building relationships from trust and from success. And I'm looking forward to, being out on my own, working with clients and companies and individuals that are extraordinary people and companies and helping them succeed.
Congratulations. That's really good news. So is this official now? Like, do I get credit for, helping you, launch this new venture?
I'm going to give you credit, Brian. This is the platform I announced it on. I still have some work to do. Got to get the LLC going and the website up. But one of my sons is working on my website, so we'll get that up.
Okay.
But yeah, Stern Digital Strategies is for real. We're signing up clients already, and
that's great.
It's going to be fun. I just get a chance to play in this incredibly creative sandbox.
Yeah, and with all your experience too, I mean, you certainly have a lot to offer. It's fun being a consultant. I can tell you from the other side.
Yeah,
you get to work with great clients. You avoid a lot of the corporate politics and stuff, and it's nice kind of running your own show. So before we go kind of towards the future, I need to pick your brain a little bit about the state of the industry right now. I mean, You've seen it, you've grown up with it, you've seen it mature. Where would you say we are right now, focusing on OTT? As an industry, we're seeing massive layoffs right now. We're seeing billions of dollars of losses. We went from this land grab of kind of content and just throwing money at that, and now much more focus on the bottom line. Where do you think we are right now? How bad is it? And is this, where is it going to go in the future? Is this just a natural evolution?
I think it's natural evolution. So many industries go through it, and we've seen it in the multi-channel space already. As cable evolved, went this extraordinary explosive growth in the 80s and early 90s, and then had to batten down the hatches with regulation, and the numbers had to work. And but eventually they got past that sort of stasis point where they were treading water. And I think that's where we are now. The economy of the industry is essential. It's foundational. And I think the market will continue to grow. I think we've built these incredibly huge pipes, and we've got a very thirsty world for content. And so I think there'll be an evolution of that market, and I think we're in for a period of extraordinary growth in the next few years.
Yeah, that's all. I share that opinion. I mean, there's a lot of people, preaching doom and gloom, and we definitely have blown apart the sort of the winning cable strategy that worked for a long time, where you get, carriage fees, and you've got subscribers and advertising. You've got all sorts of sources of revenue. there are some analysts saying that we do need to fundamentally rethink the business model for streaming. Any ideas on what that might look like? It's not, it seems like we're beyond just tweaking, right?
Yeah, I think that interestingly, for the longest time, as you know, unbundling was the big thing in the cable industry in the multi-channel world, and consumers thought it would be easier to select. And I think we're in a stage right now with so many streaming platforms. It's hard to find the content you wanted in an unbundled world. So I think we'll see some consolidation in that space, and it will make sense, and it will be better for consumers to be able to find the content. I think the real huge opportunities for the company that can figure out search and discovery in this sort of multi-portal, multi-platform world, because I think that's what consumers struggle with the most.
Yeah, I mean, we're clearly it's clear the big challenge for the industry. We've gone from walking around Blockbuster for an hour or two to pick out one movie to, fighting with our family members for an hour.
I hate it.
Trying to find a show.
I can't tell you how many times I'd go. My wife hated Blockbuster, and I hated going to the store to pick out birthday cards, and so we traded roles. And so I can't tell you how many Friday nights I'd go to Blockbuster with the kids, pick out a movie, bring it home, and didn't work. I had to go back to Blockbuster and pick another one out.
But we're doing it now. I mean, we've got so much content in, typical Friday night. We're like, hey, well, let's watch a movie. We're all together, whatever. And no one can agree on anything. And everybody goes back to their own devices and watches, whatever. What is AI the great hope here? Is that going to fix things for us?
I wish I had the answers. But it's certainly something I am very excited to explore with my clients. It's interesting, Brian, when you're working for a company, you're in a job. I was at YouTube TV, and AI was not on my plate or on my radar screen, and I was just not focused on it. But when I left YouTube TV in end of January, I had a chance to. I didn't have to get up and be at my desk at 8 o'clock doing deals. I had a chance to look out into the world, and I was amazed at how many inbounds I had from AI companies. I guess I shouldn't be amazed, but I was amazed that they were reaching out to me. And what I saw was extraordinary. I have so much to learn, and there's so many interesting companies out there that are making huge innovative things to do. I mean, one company, Waymark AI, approached me, and they basically will have artificial intelligence that can look at any company's website and pull out the marketing message for them to deliver and create a video. So they'll render a 30-second video inside of minutes. And it allows small businesses and other companies to get into the video advertising business in ways they never were able to before, because the cost of production was so high.
That's very cool. So here's a question for you, Jimmy. How many of those inquiries were real people versus AI bots reaching out to you? Who knows?
Who knows? It could. I had a couple of video conferences. They could have been artificially generated.
You don't know. It could have been an avatar. You could even be talking. I could be an avatar for all you know.
Yeah. Well, one company, scary company. Name escapes me, but they basically had mapped out the entire media and entertainment distribution marketplace with AI, and it was basically going to replace me as a business development executive, because they figured out how all the relationships worked. And I was like, oh my goodness.
That's the greatest flattery. You've made it when they're making deep fakes of you. Right? You've made it in the industry. So where's my deep fake? Oh, I got to be careful about that. I hadn't
considered it a compliment, but yeah, it is interesting times.
Yeah. Who would want to deep fake me? So, well, that's really cool. So, I mean, you've seen so much. Are there any types of, are there any particular sort of focus areas for your new consulting company? We mentioned AI. Are there other areas where it's just fascinating to you, or clients you want to work with?
Yeah, I think local TV is what I was doing so much of at YouTube TV and fiber. And it's interesting, Brian, I mentioned, earlier in the show that when I got out of college, the broadcast stations in Detroit weren't hiring, so I went into cable. But I learned in early age. I interned at the Circle 7 ABC O&O in Detroit before I graduated, and got to see local media up front and close, and saw the importance of local TV and local news, especially in the community I grew up in, and the trust that was shared between the anchors and their community, and how important that is in the delivery of local news.
Yeah.
And I'm troubled a little bit about what I see out there now, because I think local news is essential to our democracy. And I think these station groups that own TV stations are challenged right now in the network affiliate relationship like they've never been before. And there's always been sort of a pendulum swinging back and forth between the stations and the networks, but it's really more challenging right now. And I think these opportunities for stations with local sports teams right now is a huge opportunity, and it's hugely important, because if the Disneys of the world, the Paramounts of the world can use their apps to deliver local TV, it will disintermediate the local station, and they're fearful of that. And I think the ability to get other prime content, important content for the local communities is a huge and bright future for the local station groups. And
yeah, I mean, it needs to be figured out. I mean, if you look at the regional sports networks, that's sort of symbolic of some of the challenges in the industry right now. I'm a big believer in local. We talked about this before the podcast. Anything where you can hang your hat on and put a stake down. Right. Local is a great grounding point. News, sports. Your community. It gives you location in the sort of digital universe. It gives you a purpose and kind of a rallying cry. We can't lose that. It's just a challenge about how the business model is going to evolve. With streaming, right?
Yeah, and I mean the key advantage for local stations as they matured was that they were the distribution point for the networks. And, now the networks can stream around them, but the stations can also stream directly too. And I think with ATSC 3.0 and the transition of television stations to an IP world, we're going to see less of a boundary there.
Yeah, look at over the air. I mean, it's really kind of, digital rabbit ears have really kind of had a new renaissance, right? It's pretty cool what's happening. There's a lot of innovation. I don't know, what's old is new sometimes.
Yeah, I was listening to one of your earlier podcasts with Adam Ware, I believe, from Sinclair, talking about the same topic. And people are sort of stunned when they can put up one of these digital antennas and suddenly get 40, 60 channels in LA from the .2s and .3s out there, plus the majors. So this is a phenomenal opportunity for local broadcasters still.
Yeah, my kids think it's the coolest technology. They're like, "Oh, where are all these channels?" I'm like, "This is rabbit ears. Like, we were doing this 30, 40 years ago." But hey,
I don't know if the rabbit ears in your living room had it, but we always had to have tin foil on ours to pick up, give it some extra oomph to
juice, right? Well, listen, Jeremy, this is a great conversation. We like to personalize some of the luminaries in the industry and great, picking your brain about some of the trends in the industry. Also want to learn a little bit about you, any hobbies or interests you can share with our audience.
Yeah, it's no news to anybody who knows me that I'm a family guy. I have 4 sons and an amazing wife, and they fill my cup every day. It's pretty extraordinary. But when I have a free moment for myself, I dream of being a blues guitarist.
Okay, nice.
I've been playing for a long time, since I was like 13. And
I see an instrument in the background there.
It's a 1976 Fender Stratocaster.
Oh, nice.
I acquired that when I was in high school, and you wouldn't have recognized me back then because I had full head of hair and it was really long, and I love to play out. And So I just discovered about 20 minutes from where I live here in Manhattan Beach, bar that has a open blues mic night on Sunday nights. So I'm going to start playing out there and brushing up on my chops and living my dream.
Would you join a band or anything, or just like solo? Or
well, you know, when you go to an open mic night, you sort of just you get to play with these guys and
you jam with other musicians. Okay,
and jam with them. And some of the musicians I play with, they're just extraordinary. But yeah, you know, maybe I'll have some of this extra time now that I'm not working for YouTube TV and Google to put that band together.
That's great. Awesome. You know, it's good to have those dreams, and it's important to have balance too, right? So keep it busy in the industry and you know, pursuing some passions, not lost passions. They're always there. I have some dreams for the future too, but that's for another podcast.
I'm looking for a drummer.
Oh, no skills, no rhythm, can't dance. Okay. My daughter's a beautiful ballroom dancer, so she must have some rhythm vibe. She didn't inherit it from my DNA, that's for sure. So, well, listen, Jeremy, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time. Let's stay in touch. You know, fantastic insights here from Google and YouTube TV and all the way back in your cable days, knocking door to door. I wish you the best with Stern Digital Strategies, and you know, let's stay in touch.
I'll see you at Stream TV. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, everybody. This is Brian Mahoney from Trend Research and OTT Executive Community signing off. Thanks, Jeremy.
Bye-bye.